This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit temptationstreats.com to learn more.
The Roots Picnic is coming at the end of the month over at the Mann Center. We'll see D'Angelo and the Roots, Meek Mill, Lenny Kravitz. But tickets for the 2-day festival start at $225. It's getting so expensive these days. There's payment plans available if you can't afford to pay it all at once. And it's not just the Roots Picnic. Concert prices have gotten out of control. But why? My guest today is Jeff Rapuzzi. He's the program director and assistant professor of the music industry department at Drexel University, and he's the former bassist of the indie band Passion Pit. He says there's actually a lot of behind-the-scenes details that go into the price of that ticket. It's Monday, April 28th. I'm Trinity Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Jeff, what's up with these concert ticket prices? I don't want to go into debt just to go have a good night out. So what's the deal with these ticket prices?
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. So it really depends on where you want to start, you know? I think just looking back even historically to give some context, right? Concerts themselves, like if we really rewind to let's transport back before any of us were born to like the 1960s and 70s. Concerts for the longest time were really looked at as more of a promotional vehicle to sell tangible goods that not many of us listen to anymore. And so
you mean like records and CDs and vinyls,
records,
even
CDs, yeah, all of the, when we think about sort of the heyday of record labels in the music industry, concerts were mainly used as like this marketing vehicle to sell records that had such a high profit margin, and it was actually David Bowie who sort of saw this, and then the economist Alan Kruger coined this term, the Bowie effect, that as music became more accessible to everyone via MP3 and streaming, artists were really left with not a lot of viable income sources. And so touring became so, prevalent and so needed for so many artists who want to make a living. And so that's really where we start to see sort of this increase in ticket prices, where concerts were serving a different purpose when they first started versus how they are now.
So it's not just all Ticketmaster's fault here.
I like to talk about this like as the like the Spider-Man meme, where there's like 3 Spider-Man, they're like all pointing at each other. Because like whenever, people complain about ticket prices, it's always like pointing fingers at Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster's pointing the finger at the artist is pointing the finger at like their manager or Ticketmaster. And, I think it's like there's a lot to like unpack there as well, right? So yes, Ticketmaster has fees and things on one hand, right? But like if we even look at just like the beginning stages of setting ticket prices, the artists are involved in those conversations, right? Like it's not like Ticketmaster decides, hey, this is how much a ticket is going to cost. Like in those early conversations, it really is the concert promoter working with the booking agent, working with the manager, working with the artist and saying sort of, what can this base ticket price be? And a lot of that has to do, like, you really need to think about, I don't know, if we're thinking large scale even, right? Like the Beyoncés of the world, think about how massive of a production they're carrying, right? She's driving around with 25, 30, 40 semi trucks, bus loads of people. An artist like Beyonce, the daily probably average operating cost to run a tour like that is like $1 million a day, right? Of just overhead. So you think just like silly math numbers, right? Like if there's 10 shows, right? There's $10 million of, expenses. The team basically needs to figure out like what do we need to set for an average ticket price for, based on the capacity of inventory that we have to not only cover our expenses for this $1 million a day, but to also make some profit, right? And then within that, the promoter is obviously trying to make some sort of money as well.
It is a lot to uncover. And you know what? It's funny because when I was prepping for the show, I was like, okay, what about this? But I know, what about this? What about that? So let's take it a step back and break it down bit by bit. The music industry is in some ways still recovering, right? From the pandemic when venues were closed and unable to even host concerts and festivals in person.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a lot of pent up demand still from a lot of artists. And I think from like an industry perspective, things didn't bounce back as quickly as everyone anticipated, right? Like, I think a lot of the conversations I would have with artists and even, concert promoters and agents was like everyone just thought like, as soon as the gates opened, people would be like running back to go to concerts. And like it was a little bit slower, I think. If we think even back to like when we were actually able to go through, like everyone was running, jumping through these hoops that they had never had to do before, right? They're like, how do we decide who comes in? Like, do we need to check vaccination cards? How many, do we have to have less people? And then once things finally start to like build back up, things definitely got more expensive, right? So like you had an increase of goods, and by that I mean just like transportation, like production, all those things that we need to make shows happen. You also had all of this like pent up, what I would call like traffic in the marketplace, right? Like artists who maybe put out records that like they didn't get to go out and tour on, like people who are going out to play festivals. And there's only a handful of venues for every artist in every city. And so you get a lot of this like sort of competition. But even though things have started to recover for the live music industry, I think what we're seeing like is that because of this increase of cost, which then leads to the increase of average ticket price, like consumers are being a little bit more like, budget conscious in terms of like their willingness to pay.
A lot of your research is focused on consumer behavior in the live and recorded music sectors. Are consumers willing to pay more for large venue concerts, or are music lovers looking for more intimate experiences?
I mean, I would say both from what we've seen with just like, the whole Taylor Swift like conundrum that like swept the news was that like, people were like very much deciding between am I going to go on vacation this year or am I going to spend $5,000 to go to a concert? And a lot of those fans were choosing the latter, like, which to me, as much as I love music, I don't think I would be spending $5,000 on concert tickets. And so, what's interesting with all of that is it sort of just proves like, uh, the fandom, right? Like the fandom that people have for these artists. And obviously these larger artists can really be in a place that their fans like, come hell or high water coming to support them. But to your earlier point, I think because of how stretched out, right? Like with these high ticket prices, people are turning more to trying to support like local art and local music because, I think these are like two two different sides here. Like, you know, uh seeing like the Taylor Swift cover band isn't going to like, satiate your craving for seeing Taylor Swift, but I think people are realizing how much of just like local music and talent and culture is there.
There's also this like concept of FOMO where it's like the fear of missing out. And I'm thinking about Beyonce fans, for instance. Fans showed out during the Renaissance tour in glittery, metallic, Western wear with rhinestones. So, people are spending money on like a theme outfit. And then, just overall, you want to have a good time during the concert. So you might get a drink or two. That's more money. Parking, ride shares to and from the concert. Do you think that people look into all of those extras, right, when they're thinking about buying their ticket to their favorite concert or festival?
I don't know if the consumer does, but I can tell you that the concert promoter and the like artist side definitely does, right? Because of like those ancillary revenue streams that you mentioned. To peel a few layers back here, a lot of times news likes to report, like, for example, like, and not to keep harping on Taylor Swift, right? But like they were like, oh, Taylor Swift grossed $1 billion from this tour, right? And I think some people were like, oh my God, Taylor Swift made $1 billion from this tour. And really, what that $1 billion figure represents is like the gross tickets, right? And so that is basically saying, if, and again, like just using silly numbers, if like each ticket was $100 and you sold, however many tickets, whatever that ticket amount times $100 would be your gross. But in that number, there are so many things taken out. Realistically, the artist is probably only making 5% of whatever that number is reported because of various things, right? I would say at least half of that money is going to operational expenses for the venue, right? That's everything from like staffing, any production, all of the things that they need to run the show. But in that, of course, some of those numbers are inflated a little bit, right? Like they're obviously padding it. But like the concert promoter, especially if they own the venue, like they're looking. I would even go as far as to say, like, I've talked to concert promoters before who would very much admit that they are not in the music business, but they're in the bar business because so much of their overhead, right, or so much of their profit margins really come from parking and like selling alcohol and whatever other things that they have, right?
We'll talk more about what goes into concert tickets after the break. Ready to win Mother's Day and cement your reputation as the best gift giver in the family? Give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame that comes preloaded with years of family photos. Save the wrapping paper. Every frame is packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. Aura frames can play your live iPhone photos and videos up to 30 seconds right on the frame. The embedded speaker plays audio on demand. The interactive touch bar allows you to change photos, view details, like photos, with a simple tap or swipe on the edge of the Aura frame. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's auraframes.com. Promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
This Mother's Day, give mom more than a gift. Give her lasting comfort. I'm Tyler, founder at Cozy Earth. Our bamboo sheets and ultra soft pajamas are crafted with breathable, temperature-regulating fabric to keep her cozy year-round. It's comfort that feels like home, because home feels like mom. With a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, you know she'll be in good hands.
Go to CozyEarth.com/Spotify and use code Spotify to save up to 40%. That's CozyEarth.com/Spotify.
Most of us are buying tickets. I mean, if not all of us are buying tickets online or through like an app. And sometimes those tickets go really, really fast and you're like, no. So like, how is the music industry thinking about like the use of technology or buying a ticket, like hurry up and buying a ticket and then reselling it for an even higher price?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really like complicated issue right now, right? I know California tried to pass a bill last year that didn't go through that basically was trying to eliminate speculative ticketing, this whole like very nature of websites like StubHub listing inventory before the shows are even actually like on sale. Like pre-sale hasn't even started and StubHub has, these tickets available for resale. I mean, StubHub even has in their terms, right, that they won't do that, but they still do.
Mm,
And
corny.
so yeah, right. And there's a few issues going on here, right? The first is that, before the secondary ticketing market, uh, you know, it was sort of guesswork, right? Back to what I was saying before. Okay, here's what our expenses are. Here's how much we have to set our ticket prices for in order to break even or make money. All right, good. Let's put the show on sale. When the secondary ticketing market launched, right, when StubHub launched in the 2000s, it was the first time where you had basically like real time feedback on what people were willing to pay. So, like, if you put up a ticket for 25 bucks, a scalper bought it, and someone bought that ticket for $100. Well, guess what? Like, you've now just realized that you've underpriced your show by $75. And not only that, that excess of $75, it's not going to the artist, that's not going to the concert promoter. That is strictly going to the reseller. And so, okay, now what do we do? Well, now we can try to raise our ticket prices, right? Or, what has been catching a little bit of heat lately in the news is we can do dynamic ticket pricing. We're going to say instead of setting a static ticket price, let's do what the airlines do. Let's make it based on demand. And so, at high demand, when everyone is looking at tickets, we are going to make it $100, right? But then as we see demand starting to drop off, like we're going to drop that ticket price. And so now you have a situation where the artist makes more money, right? The promoter makes more money. But you also have a situation where like two people who are standing next to each other in general admission, one of them might have paid $100 for the ticket, one of them might have paid 25, and they're like, wait a minute, like why this doesn't seem fair. And so there's a lot of conversation to be had about like, do you feel more comfortable paying more knowing that that money is going to the artist, or like do you feel more comfortable with them setting a lower ticket price and then it going on the secondary and then potentially paying more there?
Is there something that we can do as consumers to push back on the trend of high concert ticket prices? Or is this kind of just what we have to get used to?
I mean, again, like I support like local and live music as much as you can. And really like some of this just comes back to and boils down to like very rudimentary economic principles, which is supply and demand, right? As long as people are going to pay these prices, people, these shows are going to continue to happen this way, right? Plain and simple. But I think until um, we get people willing to get their hands dirty and people willing to fight against, these major corporations, you know, like some concert promoters operate in both the primary and the secondary market. And so it's really no skin off of their back because they're making money no matter what. And so it really is going to take like outside of everyone just trying to throw their hands up. If collectively we all just said we are not going to spend this money, sure, maybe. But I think outside of that, it really is going to take some greater force to come in and try to break up some of these extremely outrageous practices that like we just continue to all suffer under.
Yeah, you're so right about that Spider-Man meme where it's like this and that. Like, where does it start? Where does it end? I'm also thinking about just, are there any hacks that you know of, Jeff, where people can save money on concert tickets? Or is that a concept that just doesn't exist?
It's not too uncommon to see tickets actually get released through legitimate channels, day of show, because they might have, when they're sort of looking at their production and kind of seeing like, okay, we have, especially in larger shows where like they might not be playing in a 360, they might have like seats behind the stage or to the side that they didn't think offered like a good view. Sometimes after they've like loaded all the production in, the production manager might walk through and be like, you know what, like we weren't going to sell this seat, but this actually seems okay. So we could sell it. And that's referred to, like they'll call it like a drop line. Like, okay, we've got these like 20 seats on the manifest that like we thought weren't good, but you can go out and say that these are available for sale. And the other way that you might also see that come up too is through that available inventory of tickets, there's always a certain amount that's held aside for guest list for the artists. And so if they're not utilizing all of their guest lists, which are usually like really good seats, they might make those back available for sale on the inventory.
Okay, Jeff, what are some of your favorite venues here in Philadelphia?
Ooh, in Philadelphia. All right, let's see. So I think a place that is near and dear to my heart is the Electric Factory. I'm not referring to it as Franklin Music Hall, but the Electric Factory.
As I can tell how old you are.
Yeah. Just like as an artist, like coming through and like playing Philadelphia, that really was like one of those places, that was like just really fun to play. I've had a lot of great times playing and seeing shows too at also like the First Unitarian Church, from more of like a DIY perspective, just like these like sweaty, energetic like basement shows are like always fun. And I think also, the Man is just like, when you think about summer, like just like such a beautiful atmosphere to like be out like on the lawn and like see the city, skyline and watch your favorite artist is just like truly like one of the most like magical things I could think about for the summer in Philly.
All right. Jeff, thank you so much for breaking down this whole conversation for me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really great speaking with you today.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Listen, I hope you get to enjoy these upcoming concerts. Drop this episode in the group chat, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.
The extent of my musical expression these days is just like learning and playing Taylor Swift songs on guitar for my 5-year-old daughter.
Oh, you're a Swiftie.
I'm a Swiftie by default, 100%. Yeah, by proxy.